Cynthia, let's end there, because I know we've talked a lot about it, but I can't let you get out of here without talking about some Michael Penix, because I love the analytics aspect of this, because again, like, I can imagine there are plenty of very smart people that are like, just throw resources at the quarterback situation until you figure it out. It doesn't matter if it doesn't really jive. Just find your guy and all will be well. I mean, what do you think about the differing philosophies here?
To me, I think it's a good pick. Now, do I think it's a nice pick? No, like, does it probably hurt some people's feelings, both the one picked and the one that was there? I'm sure. By the way, that'll get sorted out by the time we get to training camp, because both Michael Penix Jr. and Kirk Cousins, they're actually really great people. So I'm sure no one likes to be surprised. None of us. Like, change is scary. So set that aside. Their feelings are valid, like, very valid. However, here's the thing. We had 67 quarterbacks play last season. That's the second most in the common draft era. 67. Reminder, there are only 32 teams. So there's been a lot of quarterback backup play. The NFC South right now is very achievable. This is not the hardest division in football by any stretch of the imagination. Your window for that could be closing, because think about how we feel about the AFC East now versus when the Patriots were dominating. The other teams in it, you're like, AFC East, that's easy, right? So let's talk about, like, let's think about, like, the focus on now. And then Kirk Cousins' deal is really guaranteed for 2 years. Then after that, you can manipulate the way that the contract works. So sure, like, if they're in the fortunate situation that they then have 2 quarterbacks in 2 years or whatever, then they can trade away Michael Penix should they want to remain with Kirk Cousins. They give themselves a bunch of optionality. I think this is all about selecting for the future, but also it's kind of a win-win with the current. Again, we will get the sports psychologist in here and sort it all out. But on some level, like, this is Raheem Morris being like, we're not going to be picking this high ever again. So let's take this guy, throw him on the bench, put it in reserve, and then roll the dice. And by the way, an Achilles is a legit injury. So if something's not going well and we need to make it, like, I think the insurance policy is smart. And again, I'm not taking the human element out of it. I actually think it's probably smart for everyone, right? Michael Penix can approximate a really good other quarterback for the scout team too. Your backup quarterback is a very important role. So I think people sometimes underestimate that.
I completely agree with that. I think the two things that I can't square, the two things that I just can't get past is, we just know how valuable a rookie deal is to a quarterback. I mean, you see what the Houston Texans are doing right now. CJ Stroud, being as cheap as he is allowing them to do bold things like sign Danielle Hunter, trade for Stephon Diggs, and on and on and on. It really hurts to know that he's just going to be sitting there not benefiting the Falcons from a financial standpoint.
I kind of view it as this. I think that there's, like, to have a good one and to get that insurance policy going forward, I sometimes think there's a value on that you can't, like, if you believe, it's all about your strategy. If you believe you're going to build around this type of situation, then you can sign people accordingly. Do I know who's going to rush the passer? No. However, that's their problem, not mine. And I'm not suggesting that this is going to be like the end all be all of situations, but I'm trying to, like, be like, all right, so what is it that they were thinking and how are they thinking this through? I think it's gutsy to be like, we're not going to be picking this high ever again. We got to take it. We'll deal with the financial consequences later.
You're 100% right that it's gutsy. Like, I'll give Terry Fontenot all the credit in the world for stepping out on that limb and doing the thing that is going to make a lot of people like me aggravated. But I think the other thing I was going to say that I can't get past is, it's one thing if the hay is already in the barn and you've already financially committed to this older quarterback, and it's smart in that instance to look for your succession plan. But Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris went ahead with this plan A with Kirk to begin with. It's wild to me to think that the same front office basically fell in love with two different quarterbacks within a month of each other. Like, that's pretty crazy.
It is crazy, but I also think the situation that you draft for your division. Always. Like every single team executive will agree. You draft for your division. So like if I'm in the AFC West, I'm gonna like this. I'm more interested. The Penix thing to me is more interesting as it relates to the Raiders than it is to me as it relates to the Falcons. Because to me, you draft for your division. How do I ensure that I win my division? I make sure I have two bomb quarterbacks, not just one, two. Like we're in good shape then with two, right? Like you feel very much differently about this team having Kirk Cousins. Most of us were like, okay, yeah. And by the way, if Kirk Cousins were still in Minnesota, I think a lot of people would have been like, oh, wow, it's smart. They're doing like this Jordan Love thing with Aaron Rodgers. It's funny how the perception dictates that because he made a move and obviously massive money was involved. But I still think we would view it differently if it was in Minnesota.
That is a very good point. Like a rookie quarterback would be on the Vikings roster, even if they had brought back Kirk. And it probably wouldn't aggravate me as much as it does for the Falcons. But here we are. I mean, at some point, I think you just have to say, we'll see how the chips fall in a couple of years. But man,
but look at the Jets last year. They went all in, and that was a tough year. That was a tough season for them. I mean, obviously no one wants to ever get hurt, and no one wants to ever, like, it's just a reality, unfortunately, in the game. I mean, 67 different quarterbacks starting.
You're not wrong. You are not wrong. I personally, maybe speaking of drafting for your division, maybe the Saints way, Spencer Rattler at 150 is a little easier for me to stomach than Michael Penix Jr. at 8. But like I said, like the fun thing about this is there's going to be 6 twists and turns over the next 3 years that help us figure out who was right. So I guess we'll see.